All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another edition of FinTech Fridays. I'm really excited about our guest this week. Great friend of mine, Scott Shang. And to introduce Scott, I probably need 30 minutes to talk about all the things that he's involved in. But he's the co-owner of a great mortgage company, BuyWise Mortgage in Southern California. He's co-founded a website, findmywayhome.com, that was founded back out of the crash, which we'll talk a little bit about. Scott's super passionate about first-time home buyers and helping consumers kind of navigate this home buying and home mortgage process. And an offshoot of what Scott's been involved with is the Forbearance Report, another website that he stood up. And then an offshoot of that is a group of folks who are passionate about affordable lending and kind of consumer advocacy in the mortgage space and housing, and leads a group that kind of presents this affordable roundtable. And then we're also going to talk about what Scott did this past weekend. So all kinds of stuff to unpack. Scott, thanks for joining me.
No, of course. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So, as you know, I always ask my guests to start with a definition and kind of give your definition of the term fintech. So what does that term mean to you?
Yeah, so you sprung that on me, and I've been sitting here, my gears have been cranking. I mean, obviously, you know, the literal definition of mixing your financial just everything, your finances and technology, and it's really just moving. But it's not only technology that facilitates your finances, but it's also financial education, and it's really, I mean, I guess to me, it's really just technology is just a fantastic vehicle for. I guess for really carrying financial, not only education, but the tools on how to use in order to execute on some of those things, because financial literacy is something that is probably the most important thing, especially in our space, in the mortgage space, and it is not taught in schools. And you know, that's probably one of the hardest things about what we do is trying to communicate with consumers about financial literacy and how to think about money and how to think about leverage and then when you do, I mean, geez, fintech is relatively recent. I mean, I've been in the business almost 20 years. And as soon as you start talking about finances, now everybody has to go back and find all of their papers, all of their financial papers, and put them together and get them in the right order. And these are mortgage people are our audience. Okay, how about the blank last page on the bank statements, right? You know, there's nothing on it, but you have to include it because it says 7 of 7 pages, you know, so... Yeah, so it's really just bringing financial literacy and quite frankly, access to your finances to facilitate financial transactions by using technology.
So you said a couple things that I want to kind of poke at. So one was you said fintech is relatively new, which I think you're right. You know, most of us in the business and probably most. Yeah. I would argue, and maybe you'll see it this way, hopefully you do, but when you stood up findmywayhome.com, which was what, 10, 12 years ago?
2007. 13.
Okay, 14 years ago?
Yeah, wow.
You basically got into fintech then, right? If you think about it in terms of financial literacy and well-being, you were using a website to provide knowledge.
Yeah.
14 years ago. So I kind of think of that as a fintech-like solution, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, and you could even roll it back further than that. I mean, with the advent of the internet, you know, as soon as mortgage companies and financial companies moved onto the internet, then that's where the conversation about personal finance started taking place. And And very quickly, one of the challenges with that is the challenges with everything on the internet is there's so much information out there, and the consumer and even the mortgage professional looking for answers. You don't know what's true and what's real and what's not out there. So yeah, no, I would agree with that.
So let's talk about findmywayhome.com. I every time we talk, and you and I talk every week, we have a standing call every week, and I'm more amazed at the level of content that you provide on that website, but also the amount of visitors. And so maybe let's take it back to 2007 and just share with the audience kind of why and how you set that site up.
How much time did you say we have? I'll try to make this quick. So
I'll keep you moving.
So Find My Way Home is just the latest iteration. It actually started because I was educating a very, very small, specific niche of consumers, which were teachers in California that worked in low API, high priority schools. And there were special down payment assistance programs available to them, and also to California public employees through PERS, the CalPERS, and then CalSTRS, the state teacher retirement system. But then the California Housing Finance Agency. So the original name of my website was actually California Teachers and Public Employees Home Loans.com. That was the original one. And then, really I built it because, we have I think, Ricardo Bueno, he said one time, he said, there are not 10,000 questions about getting a mortgage. There are 10 questions asked 10,000 ways. And we all know this in the mortgage industry. We're answering the same questions over and over and over again. So on this particular topic, I was having this conversation, and I won't really go into how I was engaging in that conversation because today it would be considered pretty spammy. Back then it was probably a little spammy too, but not what that was yet. But I was having these same conversations over and over again. So I realized, well, if I sit down and I answer all of the questions that a consumer could possibly have about this, then when they inquire, they don't have to use their time. And this was right when the crash happened. And I knew consumers did not want to talk to loan officers. And then we as consumers around that time, that was about when TiVo was starting to come out. We wanted content on our time when it was convenient to us so that we could consume it in our own way. And so I started, when I would do my marketing, I would respond with an article that answered all of their questions. And I would say, here's a bunch of information. Here's everything you need to know to make an informed decision. If you have any questions, let me know. And so that's really how it started. And I did that for a few years. I always focused on first-time homebuyer programs. Even during the subprime days, I was doing CRA products. And doing bond programs, and I was doing the MCM 97 and 100s. I didn't really do subprime. We did some of them, but only like when we absolutely had to. So I was always into explaining kind of the more challenging, the more difficult. And I kind of always, this goes all the way back to when I got into the mortgage industry. The first 2 years I was in the mortgage industry, all of my business came from the turn downs from the other loan officers in my company. They used to store them in bankers' boxes. And back then you had a paper application, comps and credit, and then they would staple them and write NQ or, no value or whatever. For 2 years, I quadrupled the volume of every other loan officer in that company, only going to turn downs. So I've always seen the opportunity in the things that inexperienced or lazy people in our industry wouldn't take the time to help people if it wasn't easy enough. And 10 years later, for Find My Way Home, that's exactly how I addressed it. I always went after the stuff that was very beneficial to consumers, and most importantly, the people that maybe were told know or didn't think that they could become homeowners. And I wanted to be that resource to help guide them through those no's and give them some hope. And if it's not now, here's what you need to do it in the future. So that's kind of
so you've had this site for 20 years. You're still like diligent about creating relevant, timely, meaningful content, right?
I'm not as good. I'm not doing it as much as I have been. So for 10 straight years, I wrote 2 to 3 articles a week. And these last few years, I've kind of been trying to figure out. I'm doing this little social experiment with now because I don't think it has anything to do with me personally. I think it has to do with the fact that I'm sharing my experience and expertise so that consumers can find it on Google and YouTube. And that's it. And so we're transforming the platform so that I'm making it easier for other loan officers that share my values, share my vision, to help produce content for them and then give them a media platform, give them a publishing platform so that we can extract that knowledge out of them, publish it and promote it, and get it in front of as many consumers as we can. We're really relying on a rising tide theory, and I'm trying to bring as many boats as we can to contribute to that.
And what's cool, I think, for me, when I think about what you're doing is creating. This is like a new term. You're like creating local at scale.
Yeah,
in a way.
Absolutely. Local works. It's funny when the internet came out, everybody was like, I can talk to billions of people. But the reality is when you're creating content, you're only creating it for one person. But hopefully that one person it exists thousands or hundreds of thousands of times. But you're really just trying to help one person and then everybody that has that similar problem. But as a byproduct of that, Brian, and this is the thing that I think is the coolest, is even if you're not answering the question that consumers have, the specific question they have, you're establishing a reputation as a problem solver because all they see you doing is answering questions and solving problems. So even if I don't touch on the exact subject, people will say, man, this person seems like they solve a lot of problems. Maybe they can solve mine.
Yeah. You build up a level of credibility and trust, right? And by doing that.
And there's a transparency to it too, because it's not salesy. It's only education. It's information. And from the very beginning, I've operated off the premise that if you give people everything they need to make an informed decision, the most informed decision they can make is to go to the source of the education. And it's the law of reciprocation, right?
Yeah.
Very karmic and soft sell kind of way. Somebody one time called it karmic marketing. I thought that was really funny.
It's a new channel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly it works. You've got thousands upon thousands of visitors to your site, right? What kind of traffic do you see?
We usually hover around 25 to 28,000 unique visitors a month, completely organic, just Google searches.
It's amazing.
It's a lot. It's kind of crazy. It kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me sad too, in a way, because that means that there are not a lot of options for consumers to get answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's definitely one way to think about it is if you're getting that many unique visitors coming to you, that means they're not finding these answers or this help elsewhere. Right. And so a topic that was timely about, 16 months ago when the pandemic hit was this concept that had been around in mortgage and other lending for a long time, but never was scaled the way it was when forbearance was introduced. And you quickly stood up a page that kind of addressed forbearance, right? The forbearance report.
Yeah, so where this came from was in February of 2011. I started on my path of becoming an expert at buying after bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sale, and deed in lieu. And I started writing my first article. I wrote my first article in February of 2011, and we had we had hundreds of thousands of people over the years. They really didn't start researching that topic for a few years, but we really kind of saw the back end, the consumers that were having the challenges, and most importantly, we were kind of seeing all of the challenges that they were having with servicers, because that was a huge burden on servicers. All of a sudden, all of this value went away and people were foreclosing and servicers were trying to figure out. And, one of the bigger challenges back then is people would file bankruptcy or they would walk away from their home, but the foreclosure wouldn't take place for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And they thought that they were free and clear. So when the government decided to let 5 million people stop making mortgage payments in a 90-day period, Josh Lewis, my partner at Buywise and Find My Way Home, he came up to me and he said, "You know what? This feels a lot like the buying after bankruptcy." He goes, "There's going to be a lot of confusion. Servicers are consumers are going to have to engage, because consumers don't engage with their servicer."
No.
Unless you don't make your mortgage payment, and then you get a call.
Yeah.
And servicers are not used to communicating with with consumers. They're really just servicing the paper. They're not even the lender for the most part. And we were like, this is going to be an absolute nightmare. So yeah, over a weekend, I scoured everything that there was to know. I read the CARES Act. We went through the CFPB sites, went through all the FHFA guidance, and we created a resource. And really what it was a directory. And this was an interesting experiment for me, because we created a resource for consumers to use, but I didn't really get engaged that much. I started to be engaged in the beginning. But what we did is we found 53 of the top servicers in the country, and I created a page for each servicer, and I went to their website and I found all of their information about forbearance, all their contact information, all of their policies. And the scary thing is that most servicers did not have any policies.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to find it. It was hard to find their contact information. So I formatted it and put it in a really, really easy format for consumers to find. And then I opened up the comment threads. And almost from the first or second month, we've pretty consistently had about 5,000 or 6,000 consumers a month go to that website. And we have hundreds of conversations, hundreds of comments. And now I've kind of backed away because there's not a lot I can do. Right. You remember really early on, we pulled off some heroic feats connecting consumers, because you knew, hey, I know the president of this servicing company, and you would send an email and we would get that consumer the answers they needed. But pretty soon I just realized it was something that we couldn't really help, and I didn't have the authority to give them advice. So it ended up turning into a public forum of consumers supporting each other on how they contacted, the servicer, and how easy or difficult it was. And it's still cranking along. That was a really interesting experiment. But that's really when you and I kind of really met and got close, and we met Phil and Tino, and we brought Eric in, and then that was fascinating to me, because that was the first time I really had access to that whole back end part of the mortgage industry, because you were always in the servicing side, not always, but predominantly you were kind of in that side of it. And then, we bring in Phil Bracken and Tino Diaz and Eric Selk, and they're all on the government they all have the policy contacts and the political part of it. And it really kind of opened up those conversations. And I don't know where that's going. I don't know what we're getting out of it. I hope we're helping people by having these conversations in public. I hope that, by putting our spin on it, I think one of my superpowers has always been making really complicated topics easier to understand.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that that's what we're accomplishing with that.
Yeah, I think we are, and thanks to you and your kind of drive to do this. So what Scott's referencing is every other Wednesday afternoon, Scott put together the Affordable Housing Roundtable.
Home ownership.
And so
affordable home ownership, because we didn't want to make it feel like it was affordable housing.
Yeah, I knew I was going to get that wrong. I have the easy part. I just have to show up. But yeah, it's Scott. You bring. We kind of share. I think every other Wednesday we're live, and then every other Wednesday we just do our internal meeting to talk about what are the topics that are meaningful today that we want to address next week, right? And so there's been a few that we've tackled here. You had, from the adverse refinance, LLPA was a hot button. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the change in our leadership in government. What does that mean for the GSEs and GSE reform?
We talked about student loan policy,
student loan impact. Yeah, it's been a lot.
And you know what? Actually, I'd like to take a second. If these are our loan officers that are in here, so one of the reasons why he did that is because your good friends and now become my very good friends, Phil Bracken and Tino Diaz, run a nonprofit called the Affordable Homeownership Alliance, and it's a consumer representation group. And really what it is I guess in the simplest terms, it's a petition drive. We're trying to get signatures of consumers so that when we see bad policy being passed by politicians that have no freaking clue about the housing industry or about consumers or about human nature, and they pass these ridiculous laws, they attempt to pass this policy, they propose this policy. Yeah. We're trying to build free membership for AHA. The website is myaha.com. It's a free lifetime membership. And really, when we see things like the 50 basis points adverse delivery fee that Fannie recently removed, AHA had a big part in getting that reversed. I think a lot of people had a big hand in getting that reversed. But when we see those things, we have enough digital signatures and we have enough people behind it that we can approach the policymakers and say, hey, listen, America doesn't agree with your stupid idea. And here's all the signatures. And so that's really that was really what that was, is to kind of create more consumer advocacy, because those guys really they can pick up the phone and talk to really, really important people.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've leaned on Phil a few times to get in offices that I had no business being in. Yeah. So yeah, tons of great things that you're doing. I love everything about it. I want to shift gears. This will be like that first week when you went back to school. So Scott, what did you do this summer? So you just came off of summer camp, right?
That's reversed, isn't it?
No, we can see it. It's the Go Bag, sponsored by EPM.
No, enough about me. Let's talk about somebody else who's doing absolutely selfless, amazing stuff for our industry. Christopher Griffiths, Vetted VA Group. He did this Vetted VA summer camp, and really it was 2 full days of shooting guns in northern Texas. It was absolutely amazing, and probably
as advertised.
As advertised. And Chris is another one of those guys that is just completely selfless. He puts himself out there. He's incredibly passionate about the veteran community as a Marine veteran himself. And he thought, he's just a brother from another mother. He recognized that the industry was not doing everything that it could to support veterans. And just as there are, call centers out there. There are also veteran-focused call centers that are just churn and burn. They only want to skim the cream off the top. And so he's made a concerted effort. So he's built this really tight community, and he wanted to do this summer camp. There was almost no business talk there. It was just camaraderie. He wanted to create a shared experience environment where everybody could create these memories that they could never get anywhere else. The speaker list was a list of all the firearms we were going to learn how to shoot. And the keynote speaker, everyone got a one-on-one with the keynote speaker, which was a 50 caliber rifle that he had professional instructors, military instructors, to walk everybody through it. And there was close to 100 people there, and I think almost all 100 people shot this 50 caliber. If you don't know what a 50 caliber rifle is, let me see if I can get my camera to focus.
Yeah.
This is the bullet, and these are the two bullets that.
By the way, those are the casings in case the social media police are monitoring.
These are empty. And we were shooting at a metal target 1,000 yards away. And it took 4 seconds for the sound of it hitting the metal target to come back to you. Wow. It was insane. And I hit it twice out of 5 shots. And I think every single person did it. But no, it was really cool. It was a big picnic. It reminded me.
Yeah.
I grew up in Michigan, like you did, and we would do family reunions. Cousins you don't know, and you would get together, and that's exactly what it was. It was just a family reunion, and it was absolutely amazing. It was the most. I don't know. I get a little bit emotional about it, actually, because what Chris has been able to do and the lives that he's impacted in the way that he's done it. Is just so unbelievably admirable. He's just an incredible person, and it was an incredible event. And word has it we're going full auto next year. So anybody who's not a part of Vetted VA that cares about veterans, this would be a good time to get involved.
Yeah, his group, his mission is amazing.
Yes.
I remember him telling me early on what he was up to, and it was right when I was leaving kind of the primary originations business and coming over into the fintech space to take my role at FinLocker. And almost immediately, he and I kind of thought about how FinLocker's technology combined with what he's trying to do with this hands-on community. We immediately thought there's something there. We didn't know what it was, and it took us probably 10 months to figure it out.
When you figured it out, though, it was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's been special for us here at our company to watch. I think we've got almost 6,000 veterans in the Go Bag. That's the product name that Chris came up with for his product for FinLocker. And
and it's so appropriate. I mean, I wasn't in the military, and that's probably why I'm so passionate about supporting that community, because only 1% of society joins that. But the Go Bag is like the most important thing for a soldier.
Yeah.
That's your everything. Like if you get lost in the wilderness and you have your Go Bag, you're going to be able to survive. Right?
That's
Everything
right.
you need is in it, and the way you guys branded that as a financial Go Bag was absolutely brilliant, and it probably couldn't be more appropriate.
Yeah, it's so rewarding for us to see the users, the impact to the users, because we're seeing and we're tracking people that started at a place where they needed help. They weren't in a place to be able to buy a home and get the financing, and through months of engagement. It's not just the FinLocker technology. What's special about the way this partnership works is Chris has built this network of vetted professionals, right? And it's made up of a lot of local loan officers and also local real estate professionals, and they're vetted and they're legitimately vetted. I've seen the tests that they're required to go through. I've seen friends of mine who've gone through and didn't pass and finally did pass. So they take it very seriously. And then to watch, I have kind of a unique visibility into the community. I'm not a lender anymore. And because we provide this technology, I monitor a lot of communications that are happening in the community to make sure if there's something that's being talked about that's coming from our tech that we need to address, that I can do that. But I get to see the wonderful interaction by these vetted professionals who take each week, they take a day of their life and dedicate it to monitoring this community and answering questions. And they're not doing it because they are going to get a loan on the other end of it. There's people that are getting business, but they've earned it by helping 20 people, and then they get maybe one deal that they're able to really lean into. It is truly a selfless group.
Well, and you say one day a week or one day, however much time they spend in that group. There are 49,000 veterans in that Facebook group.
Yeah,
that is not a small task to answer that. There are hundreds of questions a day being answered in there, and they're just giving freely. And there's, they don't sell. There's no sales. Obviously, all they're doing is answering questions and helping veterans and guiding them on their path.
So it's kind of cool to end on that, because it's where we started, right?
Yep.
That's what you built.
Yep.
20 years ago with your website, not a sales solicitation tool. It's purely an informational, a place where people can come and get information and get their questions answered. And I'm sure, you've earned business as a result of providing value. And I know Chris's veterans have, but I would wager that the amount of effort and resources that you've put into your website and what Chris has done with Vetted VA, you wouldn't look at the outcome and say, okay, this is a good ROI. The ROI is intangible. It's really truly helping other people without the expectation of a benefit back to you.
It's a very long game play. It takes time to build that up, and it takes time to do it. But the relationships and the return on that investment is exponential. But if you were expecting to put in a quarter and get out a gumball, it doesn't happen that way. It took a long time to build up. Chris is a lot younger and smarter than I am, and he did it in a different way. And he got results a little bit quicker, but still, these things, it's not obvious that you should dedicate a year to something without any real clear path to what the return on that is, but only doing it purely because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and frankly, most people just don't have the stomach to do that. But I think hopefully what people take away from this conversation today is this is a long game, and it's not just about technology. It's about technology. It's about not providing knowledge, providing value, and having the technology supported by people versus the other way around. I think it's a big piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Scott, we could probably go for hours, but I actually have to close on a refinance here pretty soon.
Good. See, that's funny. I don't remember seeing your application. I got with somebody else.
I'm going to need to edit that out because this could come back to haunt me. Anyway, thank you so much for joining.
My
this
pleasure.
is a riot. Always enjoy when we can get together and riff on fun topics.
Yep.
Hopefully, folks found some value. Look at if you're interested in learning more about what Scott's doing with the Affordable Home Ownership Roundtable, check that out every other Wednesday. I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. We live stream on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, and then findmywayhome.com is just a great place to go and kind of poke around and check out what Scott and Josh have built over there. Myaha.com, share that website with all the consumers you guys are coming in contact with, because we're all consumers. Most of us are homeowners, so this is our advocacy group. And just, again, thanks everybody for joining. Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Awesome. That was cool.